Stepmom showed up weeks after my husband's funeral claiming he got her pregnant, but the DNA test exposed a truth no one was ready for. Hi Reddit, I never imagined I'd be the person writing something like this. 2 months ago, my life was normal, peaceful, predictable. I had a husband who loved me, a home that felt safe, a future that felt steady. Now I have court documents, DNA results, and a story that still feels unreal when I say it out loud. My name is Claire, I'm 34 years old. I live in Ohio, and this all started 3 weeks after I buried my husband. Daniel and I were married for 6 years. He wasn't flashy, he didn't care about status or appearances. He worked as a high school guidance counselor because he genuinely cared about kids who felt lost. He remembered their birthdays, their college goals, their family problems. At home, he was even softer. Every Sunday, he insisted on making pancakes. They were always slightly burnt on the outside and undercooked in the middle. And every single time, he'd smile proudly and say, "Perfect batch." And every single time, I'd eat them anyway. That was our rhythm. Quiet love, inside jokes, shared glances across crowded rooms. The night he died, we were arguing about something stupid. I don't even remember what. Probably dishes in the sink. Maybe the electric bill. He suddenly stopped mid-sentence. I thought he was just frustrated. Then I saw his hand pressed against his chest. He collapsed before I could even process what was happening. The ambulance ride felt endless. I remember the flashing lights reflecting off the windshield. I remember praying out loud even though I hadn't prayed in years. And I remember the doctor walking toward me with that look. The look that tells you everything before they speak. "I'm sorry." 2 words. That's all it took. The funeral passed like a fog. People hugged me, told me I was strong, told me he was in a better place. I nodded because that's what you're supposed to do. But the house afterward, the silence was unbearable. His shoes were still by the door. His toothbrush still in the holder. His hoodie draped over the couch. I started sleeping on his side of the bed because mine felt too empty. 3 weeks later, I was sitting on the living room floor surrounded by sympathy cards I hadn't opened yet. That's when someone knocked. It wasn't a soft knock. It was firm, intentional. I opened the door and felt my stomach drop. Lila, Daniel's stepmother. Now, I need to explain something about Lila. She married Daniel's father when Daniel was 19. She was only 8 years older than him. Their relationship was never comfortable. She wasn't nurturing. She wasn't warm. She was competitive, too touchy, too dramatic, always subtly comparing herself to me. Daniel kept his distance from her. He once told me, "She doesn't feel like family. She feels like someone trying to win something." After his father died the year before Daniel passed, we saw her even less. And honestly, I was relieved. So seeing her on my porch that day felt wrong. She looked pale but composed. Not grieving, not fragile. "I need to talk to you," she said. She didn't wait for an invitation. She walked inside. She stood in the middle of my living room, glanced around slowly, then looked at me. "I'm pregnant." I blinked. "I don't understand." "It's Daniel's." The air left my lungs. For a moment, I honestly thought I had misheard her. "What? We've been seeing each other for months," she said calmly. "It started after his father died. We were both grieving. One thing led to another." I stared at her. No hesitation, no guilt, no shaking voice, just a script. "That's not true," I said. She crossed her arms. "You didn't know everything about your husband." Something hot and sharp rose in my chest. "You're lying." She reached into her purse and pulled out ultrasound photos. "I'm 10 weeks. 10 weeks. 10 weeks ago, Daniel and I had gone to Chicago for a weekend. We barely left each other's side. The timeline didn't make sense. But then she said the sentence that revealed her real reason for being there. "Daniel left everything to you. That includes responsibility for his child." There it was, not grief, money. Daniel had a life insurance policy worth $850,000. The house was paid off. We had savings, investments. We didn't have children. Everything came to me, and suddenly, she was claiming I owed her child support from his estate. I felt sick, not because I doubted him, but because she was trying to rewrite him, trying to stain the memory of the man I loved while he wasn't here to defend himself. The next morning, I called a lawyer. He listened quietly as I explained everything. Then he asked one question. Do you believe your husband would have done this? No, I said immediately. Then don't give her a cent. If she wants money from the estate, she'll need proof of paternity. That's when something inside me shifted. I had been drowning in grief. But now I had something else. Anger. I called Lila. If the child is Daniel's, I said calmly, I'll support what's legally required. But only after a court-ordered DNA test. Silence. That won't be necessary, she said. It absolutely will. She hung up. Over the next few weeks, she tried to control the narrative. She told extended family that I was denying Daniel's child. She posted vague messages online about widows who steal inheritance from innocent babies. Some relatives called me crying. Claire, is there any chance? That question hurt more than anything. Because doubt spreads fast, but I held my ground. When the baby was born, she filed a formal claim against Daniel's estate. Which meant court, which meant science. The court ordered a DNA test using preserved medical samples from Daniel's records. The day the results came in, my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I trusted him, but fear is irrational. What if grief had blinded me? What if I was wrong? My lawyer opened the envelope. He scanned the page, then he looked up at me. 0% probability. The breath I had been holding for months finally released. But then he said something else. There's more. The DNA didn't just exclude Daniel. The genetic markers showed a match within his father's line, meaning the baby wasn't Daniel's. It was genetically connected to his father, her husband, the man who had died months earlier, which meant she had already been pregnant before Daniel died, before she knocked on my door, before she ever told her story. In court, when confronted with the full genetic breakdown, she broke. Not gracefully, not quietly, she cried, claimed she panicked, said she had debts, said she didn't know what else to do. She admitted she hoped no one would question it. After all, Daniel wasn't alive to deny it. The judge was not sympathetic. Her claim was dismissed immediately. She was ordered to pay my legal fees, and the courtroom felt silent in a way that was heavier than grief. Because this wasn't just a lie. It was a calculated attempt to exploit a widow, to manipulate a dead man's reputation, to use a child as leverage. After everything ended, I sat alone in my car in the courthouse parking lot. I expected to feel victorious. I didn't. I felt tired, because while I was fighting this battle, I was still mourning, still waking up reaching for someone who wasn't there, still wishing the biggest problem in my life was burnt pancakes. I sold the house 6 months later. Too many echoes, too many memories, but I kept Daniel's hoodie. It still smells faintly like his cologne. Sometimes I sit by the window when it rains and think about that knock on the door. About how easily someone tried to twist the story of the man I loved. And how the truth, cold, scientific, undeniable truth, protected him when he couldn't protect himself. Grief makes you vulnerable, and some people see vulnerability as opportunity. But lies have a weakness. They require everyone else to cooperate. And I refuse to cooperate. If you're ever in a position where something feels wrong, even in the middle of heartbreak, trust that instinct. Because sometimes, protecting someone's memory is the last act of love you get to give them. And I will protect Daniel's memory for the rest of my life. Thank you for listening.
Story 2. My coworker took credit for my project and got promoted, but she didn't know I had one email that would destroy everything. Hi Reddit. I used to believe that if you worked hard, stayed quiet, and did your job well, eventually, someone would notice. I don't believe that anymore. Because sometimes, the loudest person in the room doesn't just get the credit. They take yours too. My name is Daniel, I'm 29, and I work at a mid-sized tech company in Chicago. Or at least, I did. This all started about 8 months ago, when I was assigned to a project that was supposed to change everything for my career. It was called Project Atlas, a new internal system designed to automate client reporting and cut manual workload by almost 50%. It was a big deal. Senior leadership was watching it closely. Whoever delivered it successfully was basically guaranteed a promotion. And for once, I felt like that person could be me. I had been with the company for 3 years. Always consistent, always reliable, but never noticed. No big recognition, no major opportunities, just quiet, steady work. Until Atlas landed on my desk. My manager, Greg, called me into his office and said something I'll never forget. "Daniel, I think you're ready for something bigger." That sentence stayed with me. For the first time, I felt seen. But there was one problem. I wasn't working alone. They assigned someone else to the project. Her name was Vanessa, and from the moment I heard her name, I knew this wasn't going to be simple. Vanessa had been at the company for about a year. But in that year, she had already built a reputation. Confident, charismatic, and extremely good at making sure people noticed her. She wasn't the most technical person on the team. But she knew how to talk, how to present, how to position herself in front of the right people. And somehow, that always worked in her favor. The first meeting we had together, she walked in 10 minutes late, dropped her bag on the table, smiled at me, and said, "So, I'll handle the executive side. You handle the technical stuff. Deal." I laughed, thinking she was joking. She wasn't. From day one, she treated the project like it was already hers. But I didn't push back. Because I thought, as long as the work speaks for itself, it'll be fine. That was my first mistake. For the next 6 weeks, I poured everything into Atlas. Late nights, early mornings, I redesigned the system architecture from scratch. Fixed bugs that had been ignored for months. Even built a new dashboard that made the entire tool faster and easier to use. Vanessa, she attended meetings, took notes, and occasionally asked me for updates. At first, it felt like teamwork. But slowly, something started to feel off. In meetings with leadership, she would present updates. And the way she spoke, it sounded like she was describing her own work. Our system now supports automation. I implemented a more efficient reporting flow. I redesigned the dashboard. At first, I thought maybe I was overthinking. Maybe it was just wording. But then came the email. One night, around 11 p.m., I sent her a detailed update. Every change I had made, every improvement, every technical decision. The next morning, there was a company-wide email. From Vanessa, subject line, Project Atlas, major progress update. I opened it, and my stomach dropped. It was my work, my words, my explanations, copied, rephrased slightly, and sent under her name. Not once did she mention me. Not once. That's when I realized, this wasn't accidental. She was taking credit, and I was letting her. I considered going to Greg. But something held me back. Fear. What if I sounded petty? What if I couldn't prove it? What if it backfired? So I stayed quiet, and kept working. That was my second mistake. Because a few weeks later, everything came crashing down. We had a final presentation scheduled with senior leadership. This was it. The moment that would decide everything. I spent days preparing, refining the system, running tests, making sure nothing could go wrong. The morning of the presentation, Vanessa walked up to me, smiled, and said, "I'll handle the presentation. You can jump in if needed." Something about that didn't sit right. "I built the system," I said. "I should present it." She tilted her head slightly. "Daniel, you're great at what you do. But let's be honest. I'm better in front of executives." That stung. But before I could respond, she added, "Don't worry, I'll make sure your work shines." I wanted to believe that. So I stepped back, and let her take the lead. The presentation started. Everything was going well, until it wasn't. About halfway through, one of the executives asked a technical question. A detailed one. Something only someone who actually built the system would know. Vanessa froze. Just for a second. But I saw it. She didn't know the answer. She tried to improvise. It didn't go well. The room got quiet. Greg looked at me. "Daniel, do you want to add something?" I nodded. And for the next 10 minutes, I explained everything, clearly, confidently, every decision, every feature, and I could feel the shift in the room. People started paying attention, asking me questions. Not her, me. For the first time, the work spoke for itself. After the meeting, Greg pulled me aside. "Great job," he said. That was impressive. I felt relieved. Like maybe, things were finally correcting themselves. I was wrong. A week later, there was an announcement. Vanessa got promoted. Senior product lead. I wasn't even mentioned. I sat at my desk staring at the email. My chest felt tight. All those nights. All that work. And somehow, she still won. That was the moment something inside me changed. I stopped trying to be the quiet, hardworking guy, and started paying attention, really paying attention. And that's when I noticed something. Vanessa had a pattern. She didn't just take credit from me. She did it to others too. Small things, big things, ideas in meetings, suggestions in emails. She would absorb them and present them as her own. But no one challenged her. Because she was confident. And confidence looks like competence. Until it doesn't. That's when I remembered something. That email I sent her weeks ago. The one she copied. I checked my sent folder. It was still there, time-stamped, detailed, undeniable. And then I checked something else. Our internal system logs. Every update I made to Atlas was recorded. With my name, my account, my time. I had proof. Not just of my work, but of her lie. I didn't go to HR immediately. Instead, I waited, because I wanted the truth to come out where it mattered most. In front of everyone. 2 weeks later, Vanessa scheduled a company-wide demo of Atlas. As the newly promoted lead, this was her moment, and I made sure it became mine. During the demo, she started presenting the system. Confident, polished, just like always. Then came the Q&A. An executive asked a question about a specific feature. The one I built entirely myself. She answered, incorrectly, not just slightly wrong, completely wrong. And that's when I spoke up. Actually, I said calmly, that's not how it works. The room went quiet. Vanessa turned to me. Her smile tightened. Daniel, I think I covered it. No, I said, you didn't. I walked to the front, plugged in my laptop, and opened the system logs. This feature was built on March 14th, I said. By me. I pulled up the email. The one I sent her. Then her email. Side by side. Same content. Different names. You could feel the shift in the room. The confidence draining from her. The realization hitting everyone else. Greg looked at her. Vanessa, is this true? She didn't answer. Because she couldn't. The silence said everything. The demo ended early. HR got involved. An investigation started. And within a week, Vanessa was gone. No announcement. No goodbye. Just gone. Greg called me into his office again. This time, his tone was different. More serious. You should have come to me earlier, he said. Would it have changed anything? I asked. He didn't answer. A month later, I got the promotion. The one she took. Senior product lead. But it didn't feel the way I thought it would. Because I realized something important. Hard work matters. But visibility matters too. And silence. Silence helps the wrong people win. So if you're in a situation where someone is taking what's yours, don't wait. Don't assume it'll fix itself. Because it won't. I learned that the hard way. And I won't make that mistake again. Thanks for listening.